Let's get into it now. A spoiler-free movie review of Primate. It is about a family who has a pet monkey named Ben. You have the main character, Lucy, who is coming home, has been away for quite some time. Some of her family kind of resents her for it, but she's coming back home, bringing some of her friends, and they're all going to hang out in this really nice house. This is always a problem I have with horror movies, is I didn't fear them a lot as a kid because I lived in a trailer. And I always thought, man, this could never happen to me because if anything crazy went down here, there wouldn't be enough room for anybody to run around. So I always found comfort in that, even though I was broke. We didn't have our own bedrooms. I slept on the floor until I think I was maybe 14 years old. I was like, the only thing I can find satisfaction is there will never be a situation where any events that go down in a horror movie can happen in this trailer, because anytime you watch one of these movies, they always have a sick house. And in Primate, I think is one of the sickest houses I have seen in a horror movie. I don't know, maybe I'm too into real estate right now because we've been looking for a place to live. But you have this awesome house all the way throughout that Ben has all these rope ladders that he can go up and down. Because essentially this movie is Cujo, but instead of a dog, it is a primate. And he has all these things where he can climb around. He has this iPad that he can press buttons and communicate with the family. He has been a beloved member of their family for a very long time. But you have this amazing view. And at the very bottom, there's this pool, which, by the way, Ben cannot swim. I feel like he resents the rest of the family for that because they're always hanging out in this pool. And the house essentially sits at the bottom of these two cliffs, so you're completely isolated. The perfect setting for a horror movie. But something happens to Ben, leading all the family to think there is something wrong with Ben, which is what they said in the trailer and what my favorite quote of the entire movie is. There is something wrong with Ben. Of course there's something wrong with Ben. He gets rabies and he starts killing people. So now you have Lucy, her sister, and all of her friends trying to escape Ben, except they are stuck in this house because Ben is not going to let them go. That is the situation. So again, like Cujo, when the mom and the daughter are stuck in the car, they can't get out of it. The exact same way, except they are in this luxurious house. The thing that really stuck out to me about Primate was its commitment to violence. I think that was the most satisfying part, is they did not steer away from making the kills very gruesome. If it wouldn't have been for that, I wouldn't have found this movie as entertaining, because when all of Ben's victims die, it is very satisfying as somebody who likes to watch gruesome horror movie deaths. They went for it. And sometimes they made me a little bit uncomfortable because they are very harsh and bloody. If it didn't have that level of violence and that level of gruesomeness, this would have been just a generic horror movie, because I think the real selling point was the fact that it was this monkey that gets rabies and starts killing people. Because when it came to the story, it was garbage. It was trash. There was no real connection that I felt that they had to Ben, because it really is all of a sudden she is back home and they don't really do a whole lot of explaining or connection between why they feel like he is so much a part of the family. If they would have had a little bit more of that, which again, this movie is under 90 minutes. I think it was like an hour and 23 minutes. They didn't really have time to get to that, but they spent about 30 minutes just focusing on the drama between all the friends and the family that never really led anywhere. They should have focused more on why Ben feels like a part of the family. Therefore, whenever he switches, they have a little bit more of a dilemma of, oh man, here's this person who has been a part of our family. He feels like a brother to us, but now we have to escape him and he's trying to kill us. I never really felt that connection. So while the movie won me a little bit over with the violence, the story was really harsh. And the acting, the acting was brutal. It kind of felt like I was watching a CW show, but even the way they reacted to Ben at times was really infuriating. This is one of those horror movies that if you go watch it in theaters or even if you watch it at home, you are going to be so upset at these characters. And some people like that type of horror movie where you're like, why are you doing that, you idiot? You should be doing the complete opposite. Or also just, how can you be that dumb? The characters felt so dumb and infuriating that at times I was yelling at the screen, not because I was enjoying it, but because I was like, you guys are so dumb. So I think at times I was rooting for the monkey more than I was for the humans. The cool thing about the making of this movie is there is actually somebody inside of the monkey suit. And depending on how you feel of your ability to overlook some scenes where you can clearly tell that there is a human inside of that monkey costume, it may lead to you enjoying or not enjoying this movie, because at times the mask does look a little bit fake. And I am somebody who has been a proponent of practical effects, but at times it was very clear to me that it was a dude wearing a monkey mask, especially in some of the action sequences where he has to move quickly or run. But there is a human performer inside of Ben, shout out to Miguel Torres Umba, who is an actor and a performer and a movement specialist, which I hadn't heard of until researching some things of this movie. But he is inside of that suit and he gets down low, does a really good job at portraying the monkey. So I think out of anybody in this movie, he had the best performance because he really sold me on the movements. It wasn't his fault what the costume looked like. So I think those practical effects go a long way, and you can tell the actors are actually interacting with somebody instead of just interacting with the person in a green suit that they're going to completely change in post-production. They are actually getting into confrontations with Ben. They are struggling with Ben. And I think that at least adds to the performances when it came to some of the fights and some of the kill scenes. So I'm glad that they did that. But there are times where you're going to be watching it and think, man, this looks a little bit low budget. And the other thing this movie made me think about, it was inspired by real events, because in 2009, there was this woman who got attacked by your friend's chimpanzee. The woman was named Charla Nash, and it was a friend's chimp named Travis. And Travis was familiar with Charla. He knew Charla. But one of the things that they pointed out in Primate was there's a moment that one of the characters is a stranger to Ben, and he gets a little bit aggressive towards her. And the owner of Ben says, hey, he doesn't really do well with strangers. He doesn't recognize you. He might kind of act a little bit weird, but I promise you, he is a good chimp. In the real life case of Charla and Travis in 2009, kind of the same thing happened. They were trying to get Travis back into the house, and Charla was trying to lure him in with his toy Elmo doll, because the chimp Travis knew Charla, knew his Elmo doll. They were just trying to get him into the house. He had taken his owner's car keys, which is another parallel between this real life case and the movie Primate. But Charla looked a little bit different than what Travis remembered her to look like. I think her hair had changed a little bit, and there was just something that he did not recognize about her, so that's why he attacked her. Travis, the chimpanzee, tore off her hands, tore off her face, leaving her incredibly disfigured, also left her blind. She ended up recovering from her injuries, and then in 2011 had a full facial transplant, which was a crazy story, and she did go on to be an advocate on why these animals should not be kept as pets. So this movie wasn't really inspired by that traumatic event, but while watching it, that was immediately what came to mind, and I just had to find the parallels between that real life story and this fictional story. But this movie did win me over a little bit in the third act, and overall, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. And I know that sounds a little bit like an insult. The trailer really told me all I needed to know, and it is still the month of January, which is dump month at the box office, where essentially all the studios are putting out movies that they don't think would perform well anywhere else, because we're coming off the holiday season. On TV, you have a lot of things to watch right now with all the playoffs going on. So this is usually where they put a horror movie like this that maybe, just maybe, could find its audience, have a little bit of success. But overall, putting out a movie in January means you don't really believe in it. So I think because I had about a medium level of expectation going into it, and by the end of it, it gave me what I wanted, even though in those first 30 minutes, I was like, this is getting bad. I saw some people getting a little bit restless in the theater. But by the end of it, I was like, this was kind of awesome, but also kind of terrible. So for Primate, I give it 3 out of 5 bananas.